Thanks a lot, Ron. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us and spending your time with us to learn more about Edge delivery services. So thank you for being here. And my name is Amol Anand. I'm a principal with the AEM engineering team at Adobe. And with me today, I have Darin.
Yeah,
Darin, you want to introduce yourself?
yeah. I'm Darin Kuntze with AM Engineering as well. Take it away, Amol.
Awesome. So today's session, we're going to go deep dive into what its delivery services is, what's document-based authoring, but I just wanted to give you some context before we get into that. So we've been doing content management for a long time, and we really wanted to take, as AEM, we wanted to take a deep, hard look into all the assumptions we've made so far in content management and really rethink and build something that's radically better and radically different than anything that we've built before for everyone involved. And by everyone, we're focusing on these four personas. So you have your business owner, whose job it is to react to market, changes to any campaigns that they need to run and get things up and running and get projects finished quickly on time. We have our content authors, who need to do their job and put up content really quickly and get it up to the site very fast in a reliable and stable way. We have our web and app developers who take these beautiful designs and bring them to life. And they also need to be able to, have a good velocity in how they're delivering their code and, the project itself. And last but not the least, we have our architecture and tech ops folks whose job it is to maintain that stability, the uptime, the performance of the site, all of that good stuff. So the goal was to not make sort of an iterative improvement to what already exists, but we wanted to have an order of magnitude difference for each one of these four personas. So I'm happy to share with you where we've landed and let's take it away. So with Edge delivery services, we're going to focus on three sort of pillars here. The first one is extreme content velocity and how we're changing the game to make content, authoring and delivery really quick. We have rapid development to show how quickly we can develop these projects as developers and go to market faster. And third, but the most important one is not only do we want to deliver these experiences for you, we want to deliver them with impact, and we'll go into that in a second. All right, so let's first talk about content velocity, right? So the goal is to basically meet the users where they are, right? So if authors are familiar with WYSIWYG authoring or they're familiar with headless authoring, they can continue using those tools. But today we're going to focus on this third aspect here, which is document-based authoring. So the goal was to meet the users where they are in tools that they're already familiar with. So this is why we started with document-based authoring, where you can create, update, and publish content in familiar authoring tools such as Microsoft Word, Google Docs, Google Sheets, Excel, etc. There's the goal is to have zero onboarding and zero sort of enablement for authors to come and learn a new, content management tool or how to update content. It should be very simple, very easy, very fast and quick, right? In tools that people are already familiar with. Everyone knows how to edit a Word doc. That's the idea here. And yeah, so I think, let me get into showtime, which is the easiest way for me to show you, what this means is by looking at some sites that are already live in production on Edge delivery services, and I'll walk you through those. So let me open up my browser. Hopefully you can see all of this. So this is, I'm just taking blog.adobe.com as an example. It's a site with like 40,000 plus articles. It's got very peaky sort of traffic. If our CEO writes a blog post that gets a lot of views, we do a lot of product announcements and updates and all of that stuff through this. It's our marketing channel here at Adobe. So let me go into one of these articles and just take a look at the structure of this article. You have like a title on top. You have a hero image, excuse me. You have some content with links, some more headings, more links and contents. There's a little marquee here for Adobe Photoshop. And then at the bottom, you see three sort of recommended articles, right? So what we built is a browser plugin, which we're calling the AEM Sidekick. And when I open that plugin, because this page or this site is already running on Edge delivery services, it knows where the content is coming from. So I can just hit edit here and it's now taking me to the Word document in SharePoint that actually houses the content for that page, right? Now, if I look at this Word document, very similar. It's got a heading on top. It's got a hero image, text, links, more headings, more text and links. And then at the bottom, you see a couple of tables. A table is basically what, we're used to calling AEM components. So here we call them blocks. And you have a banner block and you have a recommended articles block, as you can see, with some content in them, which is basically pointing to the page that they want to, the users to click through. So for recommended articles, the author just has to put in like the 3 URLs of the pages they want to recommend. And then the front end handles, everything else by bringing all the title and image and all of that from those URLs and then displaying those nice looking cards, right? So this is how we can get uh, regular default content, which is, a heading one becomes a H1 tag, link becomes an A tag, image becomes an image, So that's a default content that you have. And then you have special content. Maybe you want, recommended articles, or if it's a banner, or it could be something different, you could have accordions or whatever, right? So that's for those types of content. Then at the bottom of this page, you have this metadata block, which is basically a table in Word. And this has all the SEO sort of related information. So you have your description, your title, your author, publication date, any tags, etc. So by just previewing this and publishing this just directly from Word, we can make any changes here and then update the content on the site directly. The second piece here is, okay, so, other content management related aspects, which is, okay, let's look at tags. I don't want to fat finger something and make typos. So, we have a concept of like a tagger where I can go in, pick 2, 3 different tags and then copy it and, paste it in the Word doc so that, I'm not like typing this out of my own hands. I can just select whatever is already set up. Now, this is where the Excel part comes, which is great for structured data, right? So like, where would this taxonomy live? It would live in some sort of a level 1, 2, 3 Excel file where you can add and remove tags and update tags and all of that good stuff right here in Excel. And then we can update, that tagger directly is just pointing to the JSON from this particular tag. The second thing I want to show here is, global nav. So you have our, news, insights, responsibility, Adobe Life, all of this good stuff here. So that's also coming from a Word document as well, which is just a linked list. And you can easily add, remove, update, your heading, your header, and whatever links you want to put there, and just preview, publish, and it'll update across the whole site. So this is very similar to a fragment concept where this one page or this one document is supporting the header that comes across all the pages on your site. Similarly, we have a footer document as well. Another thing that's, we're doing here is with redirects, right? So normally, the today's sort of MO is, if an author or a marketing team wants some redirects, they have to go, take it to the IT team and then they have to implement it in the CMS construct, or maybe it's Apache redirects or in the CDN, however you're doing it today. And here, what we did is we're just looking at an Excel sheet with source and destination. And then the marketers can come and add rows here to basically point a source, sort of URL and the destination of where it should go and where it should redirect on the particular site. So you can see that this team is already, they have like, whatever, like 4,000, 2,000 plus redirects already set up here. But it's as simple as coming here, adding a new row, giving the source URL path, putting the destination, and then, preview, publish directly from the sidekick, and it was away. So let's look at some other sites as well. So we have our stock Adobe site that's also running on its delivery services. We had a big release last year for Adobe Express, and that's a totally different looking, look and feel as well of a site. It has, fancy things like, 3D rendering of an ad and all of that good stuff. But I want to focus on this particular page. So this page, you're making like external calls to some third party, pricing service to get you that, pricing data that we want to see here. So, it's easy to have those kind of integrations as well. Another thing that's cool is, I can just change the region. I'll pick the Brazilian site and go there. And not only is the content, we're pointing to the Brazilian site, the content is different, but also the API call is making the appropriate, backend, call to get the right price for that particular region as well, right? So it's very, anything that you would require in sort of a multilingual, multi-regional corporate site is basically all, everything that can be run on Edge Delivery Services. We have all of our business.adobe.com that's also running on Edge Delivery Services with a different, you know, they have different sort of, uh, you know, content and design and all of that for their sites. We have WestJet from the airline industry. We have Bamboo HR with all their, HR integrations that's also running on, Edge Delivery Services. And it's really, fast and snippy here. We have IBM Health, which is now called Meritive. They're also running on Edge Delivery Services with different look and feel. And we have a PGA Tour site, right? So all the PGA Tour tournament sites, they're also running on our decks right now. And, this is like heavy video based sort of a site which they want to give you the feel of, being on the course and all of that good stuff. So the reason I'm showing you all these different sites is not only to kind of show you that all of this is running based on the document based authoring that I was showing earlier, where the content is coming from a Word document or from, Excel. But not only that, we're also delivering these sites at an extremely fast speed, right? By that, what I mean is where we can measure this using Google Page Speed Insights, where they have lighthouse scores and, the performance lighthouse score is what we're looking at specifically. But lighthouse scores or page speed insight, it's a good proxy for the user experience. So if I, as a user, was on my old phone, with a really crappy signal in a cab, and I go to your site, how long does that page take to load? What is that first step? First contentful paint or the largest contentful paint, how long are those things taking to load? And the faster they load, the better your score is going to be. So I want to show you that we're getting 100 performance. So this is one of the Adobe blog pages. We're getting 100 performance. So industry standard is 20s or 30s, maybe 10s or 20s for mobile, and desktop is maybe 30s or 40s or 20s, like that, depending on how much each team cares about that performance. But we're able to hit 100, which is the maximum you can get. This is the fastest you can deliver any site or any page according to Google Page Speed Insight. So not only is the Adobe blog at 100, we have WestJet that's at 100, the Meritive blog is at 100. We have, the center stage PGA Tour with all those heavy videos, that's at 100. Another President's Cup site is also at 100. So not only are we making it easy to author these sites and giving marketers the tools and, using the tools that they already know how to use, but we're also delivering these sites at an extremely fast speed, right? And let me switch now to uh, how we're able to do that. And that's because of our completely edge assembled and edge delivered architecture. So at the top, you have your customer infrastructure, which is your CDN or your DNS that is pointing to our origin. In our origin, we are completely edge delivered. That means all the stack that you see in our architecture is completely running on the edge using serverless edge compute for any processing that we need. But we have no sort of infrastructure in the sense of there's no servers, there's none of that. Everything is running on the edge, and we're able to provide that speed because of that. At the bottom right, you can see the customer authoring and code repository. So you can have, whether it's Word or Excel from SharePoint, or the content could be coming from Google Docs, Google Sheets, from Google Drive. And when you preview the content, it goes to the preview layer of the edge. And if you publish it, gets pushed to the publish layer of the edge in what's known as the content bus. And then the code is coming from GitHub. And when you push the code to a branch, for example, that gets pushed up to the edge in what's known as the code bus. So it's a very, API first, completely bespoke architecture that is, completely running at the edge, assembled at the edge. And that is how we're able to deliver these, pages and sites at an extremely fast speeds that are not common today. So now I'm going to hand it off to Darin to take over and show you everything else that's awesome about edge delivery services.
Great, Amal. Thank you. Good info. Just to follow on with what Amal was saying about this sort of content first approach. So the idea behind edge delivery and document based authoring is to source that information, the content, as you were, from where it was created from. So think about like press releases and things like that. Typically, it goes through some sort of workflow for potentially marketing to approve or legal or whatever. And we decided that those processes typically happen off in Word or Google Docs or something like that, are just shipped around to various people, and then eventually put into some sort of CMS or off to the developers to push out. So with that content first approach, we look at how it lives today, and then we develop and design around it. So we take the existing design or create a new one based on, depending on what the use case is, and then build around it. The process for doing that, we call it the accelerated process, is we try to make development easy, testing and deployment itself being super fast and super easy, as well as tracking and monitoring in a compliant way. So my next slide here follows in with some of this rapid development idea. So we call this the no build workflow. So there's no pipeline to run, no special bundlers or anything, as Cedric mentioned in the keynote, and performance first. A cool thing is we also have QA by bot. So a lot of those steps that you would have to go to third parties or do some sort of offline checks and stuff like that, we can do in an automated fashion. We're using familiar tools, as Amal mentioned before in his architecture slide, where you get Slack, um, the Office tools or SharePoint, Google, and so on. And it's API first. So, and the big thing, as Cedric mentioned in his keynote, is we're using vanilla JavaScript. So no extra frameworks or libraries that need to be loaded, because we're taking advantage of some of these new web technologies, and we're able to then basically integrate with everything. These main bullets here at the bottom about the no build workflow, I think is very cool. The tool chain kind of goes along with that. I mean, it's very slimmed down, but it allows for you to extend those things to be more flexible based on the kind of things you want to do. And an important thing on the third bullet there is no infrastructure. So there's no added spinning up virtual machines or registering any sorts of other uh, servers and whatnot. So you don't have to worry about all this. It's really easy. So I'm going to jump into a quick demonstration of how easy it is to develop with edge delivery services. So what I've done is I've taken the weekend site. So you probably are all familiar with this, but in the AEM world, it's just an AEM demo site. And I basically forked this over into my repository. So first thing you can see is, if you're looking at the code repository, is in this case, it's in my but it is in my org or actually I've cloned it to my Helix sites thing. But anyway, I've put it in my feature branch in this case. So or my organization being Kuntze is where it lives. So then you can look at the organization, which is me personally, the name of the repository, and the branch that I'm happening to be in right now, which is the main branch. So if I go back to my web browser or my view of the site, if I look closely at the URL up here, if I was able to zoom this correctly, is that you can see if I decompose this URL, I've got the main branch, the repository name, my organization, and .hlx. So if I create a new branch, I don't have to spin up a new server. I don't have to do anything like that. So in this case, I preloaded a branch. I created one before the event today and called it feature. So if we zoom in on this one, you can see I now have feature hyphen weekend EDS again, my organization. So each time I create a branch, I can I basically get a new environment without any lengthy setup time or anything like it. It's basically as fast as it can possibly happen. So if I created another branch, feature two or whatever, or a staging branch or whatever you want to call it, I get the same speed uh, at which the environment is available. But now if I go to my Visual Studio, I've pre-configured it for that particular site. So I clone the environment. It's now down local. So if I wanted to, let's say, I'm going to change the decoration on the site. So the lines underneath magazine adventures and FAQs. So any link, basically, I want to create a wavy liner. So if I did that, I just go back down here. And the cool thing is with Edge Delivery is we have a built-in local development environment. So all that type is AEM up. And so I'll give it a second. It'll fire up. Now I have a complete environment once this loads up here. Ready to go. It's basically at this point, since I haven't made any changes, a clone of this existing branch. So when I created that branch and pushed it up, it's basically a clone of the existing one. So these two are no different. Now in my local environment, it's now a clone of all three of those. But let's say I want to, again, make a change that adds that wavy style underneath it. So literally comments under here, so that message straight up is make the wavy. So literally hitting save, go back here to my local thing, and wow, now it's got those wavy lines underneath my links. You can see it's really fast. There was no reload. It has it's hot reloaded. So anytime we change, you can do rapid development. So if I wanted to make the background orange or something like that, it would be really easy to demonstrate. And now the process is basically anything that you'd be familiar with from a GitHub kind of development workflow. So I just go to my source control, see that change that I made. If I'm really interested in seeing that, I just comment out and the line out. All I have to do is commit my change. Well, actually, let me add the comment. So let's add a wavy line. Commit that. Yes. Sync my changes up. Now it's going through the usual kind of GitHub, or I guess a Git workflow in this case, is pushing it up to the repository, which I found it from. So in this case, it would be this project here. Here, you can see where I was pushing it up before. So this is the same branch I was pushing it up to before. And this is where the QA by bot comes into play here. You can see these different entries in the messages, the conversation on this particular pull request that I created earlier. You can see as I was pushing it up, I saw that some of these scores are a little lower. So I made a few tweaks. We went from performance to a 97. We went to 99. And it looks like I dropped one. You can see at this point, going through just some simple changes. And if I zoom in on this guy real quick, you can see we get the automated view of performance, of accessibility, of SEO, of best practices. See, I'm getting hundreds on those things. So a little bit harder to do on performance and SEO, but these are all attainable to get 100 scores in Lighthouse. The audits on the right are handy from a developer standpoint to see what's affecting the scores on the left side. So it's really handy to have those in there. You can see there's very little layout shift. The blocking time's pretty good. The LCP is a little high. Those are some things we can developer. Another thing that you'll notice on these is there's actually when the checks checks, it's actually doing some unit tests. So if we had unit tests on that particular project, which I don't think we do, you can write unit tests for your blocks, your JavaScript code, your CSS, whatever. It's also running the linting rule, so default linting rule. So if you're, improperly, not using camel case or the cloud case, keep their classes and stuff. So if you're naming things wrong, not following best practices, this is going to flag it, and you're going to get that instant feedback. And now, literally, the last thing I need to do here is just to, get this approved. Or if I was working on my own, I would just push this up. So jump back to my slides. One thing you might have noticed on there as I was going through that, and I'll jump back over there in a second, is when I was opening up that page in Amol, mentioning the sidekick before, and once I open the source or the actual visual page, I had a little floating bar down there in the bottom right. Let's jump back over there again I can even do that locally here. So I'm still running my local development, and so you can see this little kind of pill shaped item down here in the bottom. It's got experiments. So the AEM experiments plugin for your project allows you to do A/B testing. this is all, and it's all built in. You can also do personalization. So you can actually simulate these things. So if you click on the different versions here, you'll see slightly different, actually, simulate. But you can see that the user experience changes based on when I click on them. You also get the split, the click rate. So you're actually getting the data back for how these experiments are actually. And it's very cool. So you can see, this was getting 1.9 million visits and converting. So right now, our test isn't really performing one way or the other. We can definitively say, the surfing image performs better than this image here, the mountain climber that you can barely see today. So full page experimentation, you can see the analytics are also integrated directly into the UI itself. And this is something that's only available to the author. So it's not like the end page users going to see all that stuff. So yeah, see it. So really cool stuff. It's like video. So from a generally speaking, as Amol mentioned, very fast performance. So with all the QA items and everything built into the the developer flow, everything itself is pretty fast. So with those 100 Lighthouse scores and the ease at which developers can create these websites, makes much everything fast. We can deliver sites really quick internally. I know our partners out there are doing some fantastic work and also delivering sites. I think you with customers would see how easy this is compared to some of the more complicated deployments of various products and stuff. But you know, we gathered all this experience, made it very easy. The optimization, again, like the experimentation framework, we can do A/B testing, we can do personalization. You can just try out different things and certainly personalize. And what does that mean? So all those things, the impact of high performance. We have a list of customers down there at the bottom. I'm all very familiar with all those, literally. So in this case, we've seen 16 times improvement in visibility score. Uh, and in cases where, like the Meredith site, they have which forms and stuff the customers fill out, we're seeing 100% boost in conversion via those form fills. And 14% increase in repeat visits. And that's all based on the performance of those sites. And if we dive a little bit deeper into it, the Adobe.com stuff, you would look at it, the Lighthouse scores before were around performance were about 15. You could see some of the items down there in the left of the contentful pain, the largest contentful pain, and so on. They're all red. But then after the conversion to use edge delivery and document-based delivery, we can see how dramatically improved those are. So the scores are much lower. They're all green, got better performance, and the metrics down there in the bottom right, as far as SEO visits, page views, all those things are much higher. And Deloitte has this article out there that you can download at the bottom of the screen here. It's probably going to be hard, but uh, maybe somebody in the chat pod can paste it in there. Is even a 0.1 second site improvement can see these amazing increases in conversion. So you can imagine on the previous slide I showed the Adobe.com, it's more than a 0.1 second site improvement. So just a 0.1 second site improvement can see a 0.4 increase in conversions, an increase in the average order value, in the travel industry, like increased conversions again, and 1.9% average order value. So very incremental improvements can have dramatic effects on your bot. I do have one more thing to share, unrelated. Since I'm part of the Experience Manager Rockstar, today we opened up the submission period for Rockstar. So no need to rush out and submit, but if you're something you're interested in, it's one of the most popular sections at Summit regarding the experience managers. So, and that includes edge delivery services. So since it's all one part of one big family, why not? So what can you do today? You can get started right now on going to aemlive.or/developer, as well as here's an important cool thing to visit is our AEM Discord. go in there, I scan that QR code, which is an invite to be invited to the Discord. You go in there and ask your questions, and people like Amal and I are in there all the time. We have room that are hopefully responding in the chat room, right? Or not the chat pods or the conference are also in there. So most of Adobe engineering, especially on the AM side, are in there and sharing their insight on various questions. And a lot of times it's our internal community as well. So people like Amal and I ask if we're working on something specific, we'll jump in there and ask the questions ourselves, stuff we don't know or stuff we need a deeper insight into. And with that, I think we're going to jump into Q&A. Amal, you have anything? You see anything in the chat pod?
Uh,
Yeah.
oh,
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Ron.
you got it, Amol? Okay, hey man, if you're running this, go for it.
I just answered a few questions on the chat pod, but I see some Q&A. Couple of things that I want to bring up is EDS used for static sites or even for dynamic sites? HTML services can be used for any site. At the end of the day, every site is HTML, JavaScript, CSS. So the dynamic aspects of a site are just done in the front end. So any site, any functionality that you're looking for, all the sites that I showed you all are not static sites in general. They have a lot of dynamic functionality and API calls and external integrations and all of that good stuff. So there's no limit to what site can run on this.
When somebody asks that
And
question, I typically just say yes. The generic or that
it
yes, it can do it all. Right. Not to
can do it
confuse
all.
people. So it's not just blog sites or documentation sites and stuff. Because if you look at those PGA Tour websites, they have such dynamic and rich content on them, like full page videos and stuff. What's amazing is those get 100 Lighthouse scores. So there's really not much limiting you as far from a content standpoint to really, improve your site performance.
Yeah. And the second thing I wanted to bring up is this question: is it possible to run AEM publish and Edge delivery side by side, or push AEM author content to Edge delivery? So yes, you can have either one site running on your AEM that you already have today. You can have a different site running on Edge delivery services, or even in the same site, you can have different sections of your site be running on different tech as well, and then you just stitch it together at the CDN level and point it to different origins from the CDN itself. So that's an easy way to do it. If you're interested in learning more about, pushing AEM authored content that you do today to a site that's running on Edge delivery services, we have VIP program that you can, early access program that you can use to try that out and test that out. So I'm going to hand it off, Ron, if you want to continue. Those are the two questions that I wanted to just highlight first.
Yeah, no, I think that's good. I haven't seen anything else come through. You're looking at chat right now, correct?
I am, yes.
Okay. So if that is all that there is, then we have a plenty of time before our next session starts at 9:35. So you guys don't want to do a demo or another demo, or you guys are good, then we can get ahead.
I see some questions that we can continue answering. Let me see.
Okay.
How much time do we have, Ron?
Yeah, no, honestly, you've got like another, let's see, 35. You've got another 10, 15 minutes. So
Perfect. Yeah, we
you've
can
got
keep
plenty of
going.
time.
So there was a question about how do we write CSS for blocks, any HTML tags need to be given CSS class and so on in the Word doc. Yes. So the good thing here is there's a clear separation between the content and the code. So whatever the content is coming from the Word doc, it's just content. That's what's coming into the HTML. And then with those blocks, you can have variations. So if I have a accordion block and I wanted a red background or blue background or what I want to give the authors that variation, you can add a little red or blue or whatever in brackets, and that gets thrown into the class names for that particular div in the HTML. CSS can then target that particular class name and then have that whatever experience that you're looking for. So that's typically the process that we would use to do something like that.
Yeah, and there's some really cool. Yeah, sorry, Amal. There's some
Yeah,
really
go ahead.
cool stuff from David Mischler that's on that site that's on the screen, or the amol.r/developer. It's sort of David's model 2.0. So if you're familiar with the classic AM3, David's model content management, and his 2.0 is up there on the developer side. And that has a bunch of really cool best practices in that, in how to work with edge delivery services. So, like Paul said, how to code CSS and stuff, like how not to step on people's toes from a GitHub perspective, or, scoping your classes right for a block. So you don't like write the CSS in one block that affects, four other blocks or somewhere else on the page. Some really neat stuff up there that I think is really valuable. Once you get started jamming away on this, check that out. I mean, a lot of valuable nuggets right there.
Absolutely. That's a good call out, actually. Rak is asking a question. I understand to develop using Edge Delivery, you have to make your GitHub repo publicly available. So you can have a public or private GitHub repo and you would be fine with that. So we have some customers who are using private repos, others are using public. No sort of, we usually don't put any like secret information or anything like that in the public repo, obviously. So, any sort of API integration or whatever has to happen will happen. If we make a call to an edge worker or something else that has all that information.
Yeah, because typically the content that's in your repository, not the content from SharePoint or document, the code that lives in your GitHub repository will eventually be delivered to a web client. So it's not like it's and since this is a no build workflow for building this stuff, there's no like interstitial build that happens to make things sort of. So it's actually good code in your GitHub repository. It's just, someone could view source and see or go into developer mode and, inspect the elements on there to see how everything's assembled.
And
Okay.
then Sarvana. Oh, sorry, Ron. Go ahead.
I was there were a bunch of questions apparently in the Q&A pod. I don't know if you were looking at the Q&A pod or if you were just looking in the chat.
Chat.
But there was like how to see the assets selector. Is it only available for AEM cloud users? AEM of AEM assets users only.
Yeah. So the asset selector is basically an add-on to the the browser plugin, the AEM Sidekick. It's a Sidekick add-on, and then that connects to some AEM cloud service assets instance. I believe there might be support for both cloud service as well as non-cloud service assets, but I'm not 100% sure. I need to check on that.
Okay. Hey, so you might have covered this, but it is a good question about. So, what's the process of updating blocks? So, let's say you have V1 to a V2. Example, adding a new property. In traditional AEM, you'd use a migration script. Is there something similar in document editing edge delivery services?
Yeah, great question. So that's one of the things where in the content itself, if you have like, let's say, accordion, right? Let's say we have a block called accordion and some content in there. And then you're looking to update that to a newer version of accordion. You're adding some more features or you want to, add some more functionality to it, whatever it is, right? So because that block, it's sitting in the blocks folder in your code, you can update that, test it out in different branches. And then when you're happy with it, you can then merge it into the main. Now, if you're adding a new property, then it depends on whether only new content from then on needs, will have a new property added to it, or do you need to go back to the Word documents and then update all the content that already exists and add a new thing to it. Depending on that situation, you'll have two different ways of doing it. If it's just moving forward, you don't have to do anything else. Anytime that block is being used, it's going to use the new code once it's merged into the main branch. Same thing with the older content as well. Now, for the older content, you can also do a search and replace in Word, essentially, right? To update whatever content that you need to update or add some content like that. So there are some tools like docx tools is a nice one where you can search and replace links and things like that in Word documents. There are other external tools to kind of like, bulk edit work documents if you need to. But in most cases, what we've seen so far is if there's a newer version, it's usually the newer content that needs that newer version. That's why the change was, made to the block itself. So it's usually the new content moving forward would have, you can add the new property or whatever it is that you're trying to add. I would also not think about it from like the usual sort of AEM property standpoint. I would just think of it as content. Whatever content is needed for that block will be in that block. And then you can change the code as many times as you want because you have the ability to test it against real content, against production content in any branch that you want. And, and then once everything is good and tested, you can then merge it into me. Darren, did you want to add anything to that?
I mean, there's different approaches to doing this, but I mean, one approach would be to create a variant of the block itself. So then you can have basically the same block handling the existing, like you had 100 accordions that were in the old way, and the new way added that extra property or whatever like that. You just add in parentheses next to the block name, whatever you want to call it, version 2 or something like that. And then everything, you get basically the best of both worlds. So you've got the existing block code that is compatible, backwards compatible, and then the new stuff moving forward. And then you eventually, like you said, Amal, use the tools that you have at your disposal. So SharePoint has some pretty cool search and replace capabilities. So, approvals, workflows, whatever. Use those tools. I mean, that's why this whole document-based authoring was developed, because that's how people do their work today. They don't need an extra system. So it's a great stuff like WorkFront to do, task management and job management. So there's several ways of doing it. As Amal said, don't think of it like a component upgrade in the classic AEM.
Okay. And then, thank you, Darin, and Amol. So, another question comes up around navigation components. So how do those work? Can it dynamically build navigation hierarchy? I,
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
the
I
answer
mean,
is
there's two
yes.
ways. Yeah, that's the answer is yes. There's multiple ways, obviously, to build a nav component. One is you can have, if someone wants a very specific thing to be there, you can have like, hey, these are the things I want in the header, whether it's the top level, middle level, third level, whatever. And then you can have a bulleted list, and then the code is just basically looping through that and creating a nice, a dynamic nav. You can also make a call to some third party thing and then bring in some JSON and then add stuff to your nav as well. So it really depends on the use case. But yes, answer is, to steal Darren's word, it's yes.
Yeah. Yeah. The answer is always yes. But I mean, when you publish a page, it gets appended to an index. So then in cases where you want a true, real dynamic header nav of some sort, or even footer, or anywhere on the page, really, you can just make a call to that index and it'll update the nav straight from that. I mean,
So,
there's many ways
so
to do it. Go ahead.
that's a great segue into, so if the content's served from a static file like Google Docs or MS Word, how do they achieve like dynamic content if it's coming from different systems?
Darren, do you want to take that one?
I will take first stab, I guess. So we, if it's integrating third party systems, I mean, I think all, or maybe I think even Cedric mentioned it, some stuff like Martech stacks and stuff like that. We integrate with them, I would say 99.9% of the time. We have community type plugins as well. So people that you want to integrate with user generated content and so on. So other than using some of the tips and tricks that are listed on this developer site that we have listed here, which there are many, on just how to load those third party integrations and make them performant. So that's the key here. So as long as you're kind of listening and reading along with the rules and stuff like that, and actually Google is a great help here. So whenever you do those lighthouse scores on your pull requests and stuff like that, you might go, why is my LCP low or actually high? And how would I fix that? I mean, Google's a great resource that you can click on that uh, item in the pull request and it'll tell you what elements on the page are causing the scrums. Now, if you wanted more dynamic content, let's say you have a homegrown system, you can do stuff like edge workers that can integrate with your sort of homegrown internal systems as well, which we have a lot fancy people also helping with some stuff like getting user profile information or any number of things. There's some pretty cool integrations there, or not integrations that are like plug and play, but the ability to do those sort of patterns. Paul, do you have anything you could add?
Nothing else other than, yeah, the content is coming from like a Word document or Excel and static. But then when you have these block names, that's basically just telling us that, hey, load this block, which has JavaScript and CSS. That JavaScript is where all your dynamic sort of nature, whatever you're trying to do, is going to come from there, right? So, well, yeah, the content is itself static, but the code or the intelligence or the dynamic nature of that page or whatever is coming from the code. So once we know what needs to be loaded, that gets loaded, or we know that, hey, for this template, every page needs this extra thing that needs to happen on it. That can also be done in the JavaScript. So it's just that the dynamic nature is happening on the front end with JavaScript code rather than something that's coming from the content itself.
Yeah,
All
and
right.
you could do little things like placeholders that you can put in the code and stuff like that. So you have multiple languages, but you have the same content and stuff like that. You want it to display. You can do those type of things. Theoretically, there.
Excellent. Well, thank you guys so very much. There was one more question around Universal Editor being available out of the box with pages made with the document authoring capability, and that was answered in the chat. That's definitely something that's early access. So if you're interested in that, reach out to us. We would be delighted to work with you on that. Thank you again for sharing your expertise and for sharing your time, Mole and Darin. We have another session, the start of all the breakouts, coming up here in about a little less than 15 minutes, about 12 minutes now. So stay tuned for those. But for now, thank you guys and have an awesome day.
Thank you. Everyone have a good day.
Thanks. Thanks, everyone. And don't forget to check out Marcus's session. He's going to take you through, building your site on its delivery services. So you can get even deeper into the details there.
All right.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.